Hey traders, Christian from Tribeca Trade Group with your Monday afternoon recap. And I think it was National Nap Day today, and it kind of felt like that's how the overall markets were today. One of those days where we just, it didn't seem like we wanted to really trade out of range today, and we certainly did that. We actually went up a little bit here after hours here, but for the day, it basically inside value all day long today. Really, really tight range. Same thing could be seen in Nasdaq. Again, they tried a couple times today. This was the overnight session, and this was the market session. And just really, every time we hit the top of value, again, really nice to have the value areas to kind of give you a guide on your charts. We hit this once, twice, three times, and we just really didn't want to do it. We did manage to get outside of the range of the value area at the end of the day, but it didn't really want to seem like we wanted to climb above Friday's high. So we did a little bit. There was a couple of some names. Obviously, deal flow. Mobileye was this morning. And then CTSX Citrix Systems also announced that they're putting themselves up for sale, and that kind of gave a bid to a couple names like Splunk and a couple other names in that group. So nice to see a little bit of deal flow kind of back, as it really was stagnant for a couple months. Small caps had a little bit of outperformance today, up 24 basis points. Good to see that they're slowly recovering. For the week, we've got a lot of central bank meetings besides our rate hike meeting Tuesday and Wednesday, with the decision coming on Wednesday. We've got the Bank of Japan. Also later in the week, we've got some China data out. We've got some inflation data out. So we've got enough of things this week that's coming out later, which I think is why we really didn't trade out of range at all today. And if you look at how SPY is priced, how S&P is priced for the week, just to see if there was any slant going on, we're only expecting about a 1% move. So despite all those events, it doesn't look like the market is really expecting that much of a move. Again, it's 1% by the end of the week for option expiration. Also, it is quadruple witching as well, so really that not that much in terms of skew. If you look at the out of the money, like an $1 out of the money call spread, I think it was trading around like 20 cents for SPY and out of the money call spread, and about 20 cents for a call spread and 25 cents for a put spread. So not really a whole lot going on there. So that's kind of where we stand for the week. In terms of sectors today, we saw a lot of groups that really got beat up last week. I think SLX, for example, the steel ETF was down. Let me just check my little cheat sheet here. Was down 6.8% today and ended up coming back 2.7. Also, the gold miners, which were down the last 2 weeks, I would say GDXJ was actually the best performer. The junior gold miners, that's again GDXJ, was up 4.2%. And then what's been showing some real nice strength lately is, which we can actually look at the charts here, KWEB, the Chinese internet ETF, really strong performance. Again, China was up overnight, but you can see these have been chugging back here. Since they broke above the 200-day moving average. Again, this is the China internet name. So if you kind of drill into this, and if you look at, you see you got a kind of basket of names that you probably have seen from time to time. CMCM, S-Fun in there. I mean, these names are up. The CMCM was up almost 10% on the day. YY, which we saw a little bit of call buying last week, was up 4%. VIPS up 2.6%. BABA should be in here as well. BABA had a real nice day. First hour of the day was really strong. That should be here someplace. For whatever reason, whenever I look at this list, there it is, up 1.8%. So did hit that high about an hour into the day, and kind of trailed off from there. So what else? We mentioned both metals and mining, XME. We'll just look at one of these charts. So almost hit that version point of control. I'm going to mention this in the oil chart as well. These purple lines, I talk about this in a couple different videos, but I'm going to mention it again. Sometimes when price ends up getting outside of its range that it's in, Price likes to go down, and it likes to search out where there was a lot of volume at another price. So that's always the point of control, and this particularly becomes interesting when you go through a value area and you never touch this area from the last period where there was all this volume. Price seems to remember this for whatever reason. I don't really have another explanation for it, but price seems to remember and likes to gravitate once it gets out of range. Case in point, take a look at oil. This is what we were talking about last week. I thought oil was going to continue to go lower. Why did I think so? Because you had this volume area, this pocket down here that had not been touched before. So we went down in the overnight session, touched it and reverted. So this happens from time to time. I'll give you another example of a reversion. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes when there's another VPOC right down here, sometimes it'll reach for the second one. There is one lingering down here. Oops, you just go to make sure I'm on the 10-year chart. There is one down here all the way at 40 bucks. Let's hope we don't hit that anytime soon, but we don't really have another one a couple dollars away. Just to kind of give you an example of what I mean, you can look at the XME chart. Just as I mentioned, there's one down here. It's pretty close. I would call this hitting it. So I think that one's pretty much satisfied. But if you want to take a look, for example, at what I mean in terms of when there's one in front of it, we've had this nice move up. We hit this VPOC and continue to climb higher. Notice there was another one here right above it. We hit this one back last year and then trailed down. We gapped up to this one and kept going. And then this last one we hit, you could see perfect case of a reversion. We moved up to an area where there was a previous one, and then that was it. Goodbye. So let's hope that we make a reversion here a little bit. We're a little bit above the 200-day moving average. You could see all these ones further up here that when you have a big move, you often don't touch these. Notice we don't have the purple lines drawn where the price action actually went through it. So that's the key factor there, and becomes really telling, especially again once you get out of a range. Price seems to want to gravitate there. What else for today? So we talked about oil. I think oil, great sign that it did hit that purple line. And not out of the woods yet. We managed to come back from the lows, basically flat. Let's see if we can come back. There was a USO buyer. I don't put too much weight behind these. I just don't think institutional big money players are really using USO. They're trading oil. I talked about this once last week. They're not really using USO. So it is a $2 million trade that someone put up, but sometimes people are actually arbing the difference between their USO is such a bad tracking instrument that sometimes they're just putting on a trade trying to earn the arb between USO and oil. So I try not to read too much into this flow. I mean, you can make up a story every day about USO flow, but this was a June call buyer, 10 and a half call buyer. So, I'd put that on the side of bullish. It wasn't something like next week. So maybe a little bit of, you could put maybe a little bit of weight behind that than considering it was a $2 million trade. What else has been really strong? We talked about this in the newsletter from last week. Just in terms of sectors, I mentioned a lot of sectors just didn't have, this was a really good tell. From 2 weeks ago we talked about and this is what I said verbatim in the newsletter, and this is why you should be reading the newsletter. I said, many strong sectors have positive ratings, but are falling in momentum. So I said, this is not my favorite place to add longs. Again, this was not last weekend, but the weekend before, and we had some weakness last week. So this was a really good tell in terms of sectors. How are they looking now? A little bit better. Some of them still have the falling momentum to them. So we're not completely out of the woods yet. We're still working our way through a bearish MACD cross in the SPY or an S&P. You can see that right here. If I can blow this up, there's your bearish crossover, but some of these things remain pretty short-lived. So I'm hoping that's what we see here, but we still have to work our way through that. We're also nowhere overbought anymore, so this is really in great shape. You've gotten some nice defined support in all these indices. We're right above value, and I think we want to take that next leg higher. You just have to be patient and kind of let the bears MACD crossover kind of work its way through. Also let that negative momentum work its way through. One of the only sectors when I went through and kind of uh, scan for looking for sectors that had positive momentum, take a look at SMH, the semis ETF. And this is a pretty good sign. I'm not in love with this candle for today, but really good sign. Semis are, when you think about more of a leading indicator or more of a leading sector. So the fact that this was the first one to show positive momentum on our proprietary indicator, our Raptor indicator, I think that's a really, a really good sign that that's the first one to go ahead and make that. And you could take a look here. First one to probably see an MACD crossover here, which probably just happened today as well. So a lot of strength in this group. We're seeing call buying almost every day, and it's just in a different name. Maxim, we saw a little bit of call buying last week. The couple names, obviously AMD being added to the S&P, drove that name up nicely today. So that name has been coming back. NVIDIA had a real nice day today. People thought originally that it might be a negative, that Mobileye and Intel are going to work together, but it just shows how valuable these chips are if Intel is looking to pay that type of premium for it. So a nice day for that name, now almost back up to 102. So that's pretty much it. The other thing is just stay away. I'm staying away from the weak sectors. Not every sector is looks like it's going to recover. This looks horrible. Retail down another 60 basis points today. So I don't have a short on right now, but I'm kind of considering it. If you look on the weekly chart in XRT, you could see that we're right at the bottom of value. So I'm kind of waiting. So I might be a little bit late on a short, but I want to make sure that we're going to break value here, and then I can maybe possibly put on a short in that space. Other than that, I would really watch your interest rate sectors. If you go back to the daily chart, your IYR, your XLU. I would not want to be in these. Now they may fluctuate a bit with the rate hike on Wednesday, so I don't have any trades on in this space at all. But you could see IYR is back below the 200-day moving average. I'm also waiting for a break. You can maybe draw a trend line here, which it looks like it's broken, but I'm waiting for this break of value as well. XLU is still above the 200-day moving average, so if you want to maybe wait to see if this breaks the 200-day moving average, that's about a little more than $1.50 away. I'm surprised it's actually holding up as well as well as it is, considering maybe it's because it's so damn cold and on the East Coast and we got this big snowstorm coming. Maybe that's why the utilities are holding up okay, but TLT just continues to march lower and lower. So when that happens, when interest rates move up, you could see we actually, speaking of VPOX, we're about to take another one out here, and we're about to break this low here. So with this moving down, I think I'm waiting. I really like to use the 200-day moving average in my system, so I'm waiting for XLU to break the 200-day moving average, and then I think it will set up as a really nice short, considering that IOIR has already done it. Telecom stocks also look very weak as well. They just broke the 200-day moving average. They clawed back a little bit today, but here's a 200-day moving average. Could be a nice area to short if it comes back and retests the 200-day moving average and fails. So that's it. I actually did not put on any swing trades today. I had a couple nice trades. I called a little bit lucky that Blackstone was mentioned in Barron's this weekend, was up 4.8%. But I've been adding to this and been watching the tape in terms of what type of option activity we've seen. We've seen a lot of calls being bought this January and January 2019. So these guys are usually right when they put that type of that type of trade in place longer term, and a lot of money in place. Micron, which I've kind of was adding on dips last week, it's kind of sold off a couple times at the end of the day. I just kept on adding. So real nice day for Micron, up 2.8%. What else? We saw a couple nice trades. ECA was actually mentioned on the halftime show. They just continue to go after ECA. I'm long this one. No profits taken yet, but sitting right above the 200-day moving average. Perfect. As long as it's above that 200-day moving average, fine. So they did mention the activity on CNBC today. EMR, this is a industrial name. They came in a couple times in this one. So Emerson Electric, this is if you're looking for names that are a little bit on the dip and have not really broken trend, kind of pushing to the downside. This one had a nice day today, up 1% after we saw call buying a couple times. Not the largest order, but it did catch our attention because it hit like about 3 times today in EMR. Let's see how many contracts they ended up trading. 4,000 actually, 4,000 of the April contracts. So I had this from earlier in the day. Sirius Satellite, if you're looking to buy a name on a 52-week high, here you go. They bought a lot of these options today. They actually kept on going after them. 37,000 April 5.5s. So pretty much at the money. The trend is your friend if you're a trend follower. This name has just been kind of broke out of range here a couple months ago. And we'll see what this thing does tomorrow, but somebody's really interested in it. 37,000 contracts for 5.5. Again, if you look at the price, not the biggest. This is not a huge bet in terms of notional. I think it was about 350,000 in premium. So you always want to look at the price. Sometimes the number of contracts can be misleading, but it's about a $350,000 bet. I think when you probably add this in, probably about 400,000. Let's see. Anything else? A lot of casinos bought today. There was a nice note by Morgan Stanley on Wynn. So Wynn took off. We saw a lot of also weak. This is all very short-term stuff in terms of Wynn, Las Vegas Sands, April 7th calls, and MGM weeklies, which we saw MGM weeklies last week and they didn't work. But so that's about it. A couple of orders, couple chippy, small orders on the put side. Nothing that notable. Probably the WLL was probably the most notable. We talked about there were some SMH puts that went up aggressively, some TUR puts as well, Turkey, and we talked about the USO order. So that's today's video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow in the trading room. Thanks for watching, and have a great night.